Okay, good evening, everybody. We're gonna get started for the third meeting this year, third or fourth? I guess fourth meeting for Delaware Bicycle Council, fifth meeting? Man, it's really lagging behind here. For October 1st, 2025. John's gonna get us started with the roll call, please.
All right, so I'll go down the list. Lauren,
Here, hi everyone.
Fran,
Here.
Matt Cochran, Pam Eaton, see, Tom Hartley, Scott Hoffman here, Amanda Kelly,
Here.
Mike Crumrine, Marty Lessner,
Here.
Jackie, Wendy Flasco,
I'm here.
Michael Tyler,
Here.
Michael Wagner,
Mike Wagner here.
Sergeant Wheatley,
Here, and then just to give you a heads up, I'm on by phone. I will be signing out when I get home and sign it back on my laptop. I'm about 15 minutes away.
okay. James Wilson here. Have total 10.
All right, 10 people, great. And then who do we have from the public?
We have first Bill Weller.
Bill, are you gonna speak tonight?
Can you hear us, Bill?
No. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I said I have nothing planned, but I may speak, asked to speak during the old business about the memorial plaque for John Kay.
Okay, great.
Next is, I have the name Collins. Still on mute.
Yeah, I will not speak.
Okay. Let's see. Next is Ian.
An interested observer.
Next is Fleming.
Nothing from me.
Next is John Bear.
Just as an observer, John.
Yep, thank you. Next is Paul Moser.
Hey, just observing.
Yep. Next is Ray.
Just observing.
Let's see. Next, the name shows up as Ty Shift Justice.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I seem unable to change the name on here. That's my work. Please disregard it. My name's Miriam Dede. I wanted to talk about a particular intersection and making it safer. I live in Surrey Park neighborhood in North Wilmington, and my son's 5 years old and just
So
started.
Miriam, can you hold on for a second?
Oh.
We're just finding out who's gonna speak, and then there's, next on the agenda, we'll give everybody a chance. Thank you.
Okay.
And then
Hang in
last
there, Miriam.
last is, I think it's Tobias. I just meant on. Okay.
I will not speak.
Thank you. And then internally here in person, I'll start with you.
Yes, Brian Mataway, representing the city of Newcastle, I believe. We have a presentation on deck and certainly interject if allowed during that presentation.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Next, Chris.
Just observing.
And then lastly,
Dave Moses, just briefly about a bike shop issue that we've communicated with.
okay. And then the public comment.
All good? Okay, so, first item on our agenda, and then we'll get to the public comment, is, approval of the previous minutes. John sent the draft minutes out. If anyone has any questions or comments, please let's talk about those. Otherwise, I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, which was August 6th.
I think Mike Tyler made a motion.
Yes.
Yeah,
First.
first, Mike Tyler made a motion to approve the minutes,
Second.
seconded by Marty. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Great. Thanks, John, for putting those together. Move on into item 2, public comment. And I think, was Miriam up first?
Yes.
Okay, Miriam, sorry about that.
That's okay. Thanks for giving me time to talk. So my son is 5 years old and he started at Hamby Elementary in Brandywine School District. It's a neighborhood school. And 4 days a week, I bike with him to school. It's a 1.5 miles. It's a lovely bike ride. He loves biking. It turned into doing this much biking because the bus stop is really far. And frankly, he has just enjoyed biking so much and the weather's been good. So it works for us. But we've also been I've been organizing within our neighborhood to do a Friday bike bus. And we have one family currently riding with us on Fridays. And I'd love to expand that, but we have had an issue, which is crossing Silverside. So going through Surrey Park neighborhood, really no problems with traffic, but we have one crossing. It's Sorrel Drive and Silverside. There's a marked pedestrian crosswalk and a button you can press to have lights flash, which in theory, the lights are supposed to be telling cars to stop for pedestrians. But I think the lights are really just there to mock us. Cars go really fast on that road. I have myself and my son and anyone biking with us get off our bikes and walk across the crosswalk. And we often have to wait a long time. And it's not about the waiting though. It's actually that one car will wait and then another car is blasting through and it causes a lot of confusion. I think that, I hope anyway, that what would fix it is putting in one of those plastic A-frame signs that go in the middle of crosswalks that say it's state law to stop for pedestrians in a crosswalk. I think that would make a really big difference and cost very little money. And so I'm asking this council to put one in at Sorrel Drive and Silverside Road. That is the best crossing to get from my neighborhood and our neighborhood to Hamby Elementary. because we have to get to the other side of the road, and the sidewalk, there's a portion of no sidewalk on that side of Silverside Road. So while there are other places to cross, that's the only place that we can cross where we'll have consistent sidewalk. I'll say I, as a cyclist, will bike on Silverside. I will not let my 5-year-old bike on Silverside. And so we do use sidewalks on that portion. So that was it. That's my ask.
So, Miriam,
So Miriam, we're gonna, sorry, Maureen, James is gonna try to pull up the intersection. There we go. Sorry about that. Is this the correct location, Miriam?
I think so, yeah. If you look to the right, the gazebo is right there. Yep. So you can see there's no sidewalk on that side. So we could, if there was, the other option is to extend the sidewalk. If the sidewalk went down, we can take the sidewalk 2 more intersections over and then wait for like traffic lights. So the cars will actually have a red light. But here, there's no sidewalk when you're going to the right. So your only option is to bike on what I think is like someone's front yard, private property, or to bike on Silverside. So we walk across right here. That's it right there. And it just, cars don't stop. One car stops, another car blasts through. It's hair raising.
Miriam,
So-
are you going toward Bonsall Park and getting on at Glendale? Or are you going left and getting on at Sweetbriar?
So Bonsall Park is just to the right there. Like if you went down Silverside, this direction, that view right there, Bonsall Park is just in front there. So there's actually, I think, an ongoing issue with this, aside from our like specific bike ride. I think there's an issue with this intersection, because if you wanted to come from this neighborhood or this side of Silverside to Bonsall Park, you have a stretch of no sidewalk.
You have to go up to the light there, the entrance to Bonsall, right?
So if you go, sort of, there are 2 entrances. So if you go one crosswalk up Silverside here, there's a main entrance to Bonsall, and there is no light there. There's just another crosswalk. But then you go one more, and there is like a full traffic light.
So Miriam, I don't work for the Delaware Department of Transportation. I'm not a civil engineer, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. There are 2 at-grade crossings of the Markel Trail with these are called. Have you heard the name to this little thing? This little flashing thing on the right that's on the screen?
No, I don't know the name of those.
So those are RRFBs, which stands for Rapid Rectangular Flashing Beacons. And they are something that DelDOT puts up to, so instead of just a crosswalk, they put up these RRFBs as sort of, like an additional thing you press, and it's supposed to do the drivers, but what you're telling us is they don't, you press the button and you don't really see a lot of slowing down.
Yeah, I'll say too, I know those crossings on the Markel Trail. I also hate them there. But I think part of what's confusing about these signals is, I know on the Markel Trail, it explicitly says it's on the people on the trail to yield to the cars. Here, with the traditional pedestrian crosswalk, it should be on the cars to yield to the pedestrians, I think. But I think the real problem is it's unclear. And so some cars are yielding, some cars aren't. I hate these things though, whatever they're called. I find it pretty consistent that it's inconsistent how cars, pedestrians, and cyclists treat them.
You may not remember that the situation on the Markel Trail is a little bit different at both of the grade separated crossings at Ferry Cutoff and Bolden Boulevard. In addition to the RRFBs at those locations, there are also these median islands. So in other words, when you're driving down Bolden Boulevard or 273 there, you have this sort of island in the middle of the street that you're driving down. So it's not just the RFB. Literally, there's some change in the physical geometry that drivers see at that crossing.
Yeah, I mean, I figured like this exists already, this framework. So just as a non, like, I don't know about, transportation infrastructure. That's not my, that's not, that's not my area of expertise. But just in looking at this, my thought was just putting in one of those simple yield to pedestrian signs that goes in the middle. Like there's one on the crosswalk by the Delaware Center for Horticulture. They're all over around the UD campus. Like you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Just those ones that go right in the middle where the double yellow line is. I think that would make the difference here to make it clear what cars and pedestrians should be doing at the crosswalk.
I've seen those on a number of streets. I feel like, and this is not me either encouraging you or discouraging you, it's just me talking out loud. I feel like I've seen those in a number of places, but they're like sort of like downtown locations where I've seen them, where they stick them right in the middle of the street there. I feel like this kind of road, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying it seems like be an unusual location for that kind of thing.
I mean,
Well,
I'm
isn't-
all ears for other solutions. I'll tell you my tongue-in-cheek solution was that when you press the button, rather than lights flashing, a big railroad crossing bar comes down. The cars will just get T-boned if they try to go past.
So Miriam, are you saying when you push the button and the lights start flashing, the cars just aren't stopping?
Yep. But it's almost worse than that. Like one will slow down a little bit and then not stop. One will stop and then another goes 60 through. Like,
So are the
there-
lights not bright enough? People don't see the lights? I know sometimes the sun glare can be in their face when they're coming on Silverside.
I really think no one knows what the light means, and they don't know what they're supposed to do at a crosswalk. But maybe if the light was brighter, I don't know. It is not doing anything except for mocking us as we stand there.
How about a sign there that says must stop for pedestrian when light is flashing?
That would help. I think that would help a lot.
Or making that the pedestrian, the white, I would say the Beatles Abbey Road striping there. How about if you make that brighter and multicolored so that people know that that's a crossing?
I think that would help too. It's pretty well marked as a crossing though right now. Like I think if you are driving through there and you don't see it's a crosswalk, you probably shouldn't be driving.
Well,
But I'll take anything, any solutions y'all have.
the problem with that
I
stretch
think
of
it
road
looks
is that
brighter. Like that picture, I think it looks clearer than that in person.
the problem with that is the cars are going pretty fast. They do about 50 coming down the hill from Shipley and
Yeah.
coming from the other way.
It seems like a high speed to have a lot of confidence that this RFP is gonna. I feel like a few years ago I looked into there's some research. I mean, you can Google it, or you can probably even like ask an AI to sort of review the research. People have looked into how often drivers yield with RFPs, and my memory of that research has been a couple of years, but I believe it's the faster the road, the less frequently the drivers yield to our RFPs.
Yeah. I mean, the speed limit is 35, but I think the average is probably 50, and cars regularly are going faster than that too. So that tracks.
Let me interject. I was looking at Street View and I do see that there is no warning ahead sign like up the road. So, there's no advance warning of this crossing. So I wonder if that's also an idea. And also a second idea is if you turn around on the Street View, there's actually only one, sorry, going the opposite direction.
This way?
So, yep, going that way. There's actually only one lot that does not have a bike way or a shared use path from this intersection to connect to the park. So, and there are two rapid flashing beacons. There's one here, and it looks like there's one in front of the park entrance. So, it might be beneficial to try to get like one main crossing. And by doing that, you could just add a shared use path on the right-hand side here to connect to the park's path. and then have everyone cross at the park entrance where people might be expecting more people to be crossing.
I think
Um,
that would help a lot.
so I think that's another idea that that maybe DelDOT can look into. Is just you're looking at maybe what 200 feet of shared use path to connect. So that's just one of my options.
Yeah, the
Hey,
problem,
JT,
there's a
go
problem.
ahead.
There's a problem with that, and that is that there's traffic turning. So you're gonna have a light there, and it's not just clear to cross the street, but there's people who may be making left hands or coming out of the neighborhood and making right-hand turns. So it's much better to have somebody cross at the crosswalk with traffic stopped in both ways than it is up there where you've got basically a four-part intersection, and getting four lanes of intersection traffic. If you're talking about the entrance to Bonsall Park.
Correct. No, I do see that point, as there's one less area for traffic to come in. Like a three-way intersection is a lot safer than a four-way intersection.
And this is basically, yeah.
This is Paul Moser.
so-
I had my, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, I've had my hand up, but no one was calling me, so I'm just going to interject here. So just to let you guys know, this was something that was kind of identified on the US 202 master plan, sort of bicycle network plan. Out of that came a project to actually improve a pathway leaving Surrey Drive, going south to that new Falkstone development and connecting to Falk Road, a shared use path to connect to the high school and Halliday Park. And this little connection from Surrey Drive, or is it Sorrel Drive? That's it, Sorrel Drive, to the park and to Glendale Road is a pretty critical part of that plan. So we're actually moving forward a project into engineering design this next fiscal year to improve that pathway behind the Folkestone development. So we can look at this. I know Newcastle County previously, you can see the connections going into the park are relatively new. I'm not sure why they stopped and didn't go across that one parcel that JT was talking about. So I can look into that and follow up with you guys, because we're going to have a project in the area in the future. So if there's something we can do to try and improve this situation, I'm open to it. So happy to set up some meetings to follow up on this in the future.
That'd be great.
Looks like we also have Jackie. Jackie, your hands up.
By the
Well,
way,
until
thank
Jackie
you, Paul.
unmutes herself, I'm just going to say James was right about that one. There is kind of the inverse relationship with yielding with rapid flash beacons at higher speeds. This is not what's in the NUTCD or what our typical methods for analyzing these are, but the rule of thumb that I use is 35 miles an hour. You start to lose compliance. And the presence of a mid-block crossing island is really critical, not just for people to actually notice them and perhaps yield to them, but also for the people crossing, because then you have to cross one leg at a time. So if you really want to make this a higher quality non-signalized, and by non-signalized I mean without a pedestrian crossing red stoplight, you're going to want to probably have one of those mid-block median island crossings here.
So Paul, completely apart from the, whatever you were talking about is in the 202 plan. If somebody were to ask you for your sort of hopeful vision of this intersection, would it definitely include that island?
Yeah, if you're not going to have some kind of, like I said, signal control with like a red light, in my mind, you would definitely benefit from a median crossing island here. Especially if you have kids crossing, like you're asking kids to cross 2 lanes of high-speed traffic that's high volume with shoulders, like the time you'd have to wait for a gap that feels comfortable is probably unacceptable for most people. So the median island would really help with that. And it'd make it feel a lot safer. So yeah, I would say it's probably necessary.
Thanks, Paul.
In my opinion.
Mike Tyler.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, when I was in Lewis, we put those pylons up, and I think they were mentioned. It says, must yield to pedestrians. They can be run over by a car, but they're not going to hurt anything. But I think that would be an ideal thing too, that for a forewarning that you put one of those right on the yellow lines, the double lines there, and I think people would see them prior.
Mike, what kind of street, what kind of street was that? Is that Savannah, like Savannah Road or something like that?
Yeah, they were on Savannah Road, and they were also on Kings Highway. We had problems with the fire department at first, but now they've yielded that, and they line the road, all Savannah Road and Kings Highway.
So Savannah's 25.
But I know that they work.
Savannah's 25. Do you know what Kings Highway is?
Yeah, it's 25 miles an hour. Yeah.
Kings Highway too?
Yes. But
if I may interject, Miriam,
Thank you,
my
Jackie.
short-term solution would be contact your local DSP troop and either video record people running through the RFB and ask them nicely to come and do some enforcement, especially before school. And to reinforce that, you could call your state legislator and ask them for some support in this. It does sound like DelDOT has it in plans. So I would also encourage you, if they have any public meetings coming up, to make sure that it's addressed during the public meetings for the whatever they're planning on doing up there.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I'll just say in response to that, first off with the pylon thing, I'd ask for like I love all the other solutions. I much prefer putting like the thing in the middle. All the stuff you guys were talking about sounds great and better than what I was suggesting. I think the problem with the enforcement, like asking for increased enforcement, is the road is set up for people to speed. Like the speed limit's 35, no one's going 35. If you went 35 on there, you'd have a line behind you of people honking. And then that intersection, I think there need to be changes in the traffic pattern there, because people are set up to do that. Like I don't even necessarily blame the cars for how they're going through. It's set up for them to do that. It's designed for cars. That whole area is designed for cars. So I hear you, but you'd have to arrest like every driver.
But
and
then
I
just
think it would change the problem at heart.
So our office reimburses for enforcement. Them just being out there occasionally will make them slow down. And if it helps one car, if maybe they just need to do it a half a dozen times, but if they're out there sporadically. So again, if it was me riding my child to school, that's the first line of defense I would do. And, it's kind of like, if they think they're going to be there, they're going to slow down. If they don't think they're there, they're going to keep speeding.
That's
Sergeant Wheatley.
Well, thank you. And I just want to, from the state police perspective, second what Jackie said, that I think, and I know that we've beat on this topic quite a bit here, but I think that enforcement is something that can easily be done. So I would contact the troop, and pardon me, but I'm going to assume this is Troop 2's area. I've worked in the southern half of the state for 18 years, so I'm not 100% sure where the boundary lines are upstate, but they have community outreach officers assigned to their troops that can easily go out and do enforcement. And as Jackie said, a little goes a long way, especially on Silverside Road. I have ridden down that road quite a bit. It's heavy traffic, it's high speeds. I don't necessarily agree with the pylon in the middle on a 50-mile-an-hour road, 35-mile-an-hour roadway there with high speeds when opposing traffic. But the only solution I could think of for a short-term solution would be like they have in Lewis on Route 1, where they actually have arms extending over the roadway, where you hit it, it flashes, it turns red, it gives a little bit of time for people to cross the roadway, and then it resumes normal traffic patterns. I don't know if anybody's familiar with those, but they're in Rehoboth on Route 1 in the summer times. That would be the most short-term solution, with the state police enforcing during a specific set time of hours. Jackie also hit on that there's money involved. They can pay officers to go out there specifically for that, so they're not just there until they get a call. Again, please contact your troop from the DSP's perspective, that's what I would recommend.
Why isn't it, now that we have this issue, that somebody from DelDOT who would be responsible for maybe making the hawk light flash more or more signage or repainting the road? Why don't we have somebody from DelDOT call Miriam directly instead of making Miriam make a series of phone calls? She's brought the issue to the Delaware Bike Council. So it should be our responsibility, since we have representatives of all these agencies, to have them call Miriam and talk about it. The same with the police. Whoever is responsible for setting up some enforcement, I want to say some speed enforcement on variable times. Why don't we have them call Miriam to discuss the issue rather than she's brought the issue to the Delaware Bike Council. So let's have the powers that be contact her.
So John, who in DelDOT would be able to, what group would address this issue? How do we go about interfacing with them?
I'm assuming it'd be our traffic speech.
Okay, so can you talk to them, or you can send an email about it? How does that work?
Should come from you.
Okay.
You can CC me in. It's Peter Haig.
Okay.
And just to keep the council in the loop, if there's going to be email traffic to Miriam, I'd like to be included, at least on the initial part.
And Scott, this is Paul Moser. Because I said I have a project in the area, you can CC me on that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Miriam, for bringing this to everybody's attention.
Safe riding, and next year we're going to make you and your son ride on a tandem up Monkey Hill.
I would love that.
Okay. All right.
Next will be Dave.
Dave's next. Yep, Dave.
My turn?
Yep.
Okay. A problem that we've been seeing in the bike shop that has been ongoing, we first made DelDOT aware of it back in 2022, and it's continual, is that we get a lot of people, first of all, that come in the shop to buy tubes where they've gotten slow flats and they can't figure out why. And then they're back in the shop again 2 or 3 times buying more tubes before they finally bring the tire in and have us troubleshoot it. It's a real difficult issue to troubleshoot, but we didn't have this issue in 2021. It seemed to happen in 2022. And what's happening is that it seems like the shoulder cleaning or the street cleaning equipment that DelDOT is using was switched to a wire bristle system. And one of these wire bristles is about the thickness of a human hair. So what happens is that it doesn't affect car tires, but it goes into bike tires, and then will have such a low or such a small hole that it would be a very slow leak. And sometimes for us to even find the leak, we have to completely disassemble everything, take the tube out, put it underwater, see where it's coming from, and then map that out on the tire. Because many times the outside of the tire has worn that wire bristle off, but the wire bristle still goes through the tire. And when you inflate the tire, it protrudes and creates a puncture in the tube. So this has been an ongoing issue that we our shop emailed DelDOT on in 2022 without a response. There were 1 or 2 emails since, but I know I personally emailed asking if we could come out here to speak about it. And John said that he was going to pass it on to the appropriate people, because we're having to teach people how to try and troubleshoot this and find it themselves, because many of them, it's not the first time or the second time, it's the 3rd time before they're in, and we're finally pulling things apart and showing them how to try and find this. But yeah, it's a real nuisance for cyclists.
Did you manage to collect one or more of these bristles?
They're so tiny that we do try and pull them out with a pick. Sometimes the tire, occasionally the tire will get, have to be patched from the inside or something of that nature to keep it from bulging at that place. but I did not collect any. I may be able to find a photo of one because I know a few times I've sent them to people, but you know, I can only assume, and maybe it is an assumption that I shouldn't be doing. I know, I remember seeing a street sweeper in the past that kind of looked what looked like a horsehair brush. And I can only assume that maybe DelDOT has changed to a wire bristle brush, and I'm sure there are reasons why they did that. I'm sure it's more efficient for the taxpayers and requires less maintenance. And there again, is not going to affect a car tire, but has been quite a nuisance for bike tires. And it's just, if you can imagine a wire bristle about as thin as a human hair, that's what it looks like, and that's what it is.
If we went to DelDOT maintenance, would we wanna, you know, I'm anticipating something they might say, like,
Yeah, well, John said he was gonna pass it on to whoever's in charge of that, so they would probably have knowledge as to what they're using, and maybe nothing could be done about it. But I was talking to Chris at a private event we were at, and you know, Chris felt very strongly that it should be brought up to the Delaware Bike Council. So that's why I'm here.
do you have something from M&O?
I passed it on the same day I got your latest email. And I did get a response back, but it's the basic response. He's looking into it, but I haven't gotten a response back to that. So he is aware of the concerns and he's looking into the matter.
Yeah.
So
this started in 2022 and has been an ongoing issue since. So we have, I mean, we want to be able to tell our customers when they come in and they're so frustrated with this situation that we're doing all we can. And that's another reason why I'm here.
Is it possible that some of these streets are city of Dover streets?
Well, most of it is, when I talk to them about where it's happening, it's usually happening on the west side of Dover, like Westville Road, Hazelville Road, Wyoming Mill Road, and those roads that people enjoy cycling so much for recreation. And I know it's where we do our shop rides every Thursday night as well. So, those are the most popular and the most safe roads because the shoulders are wide and they're nice, and that's where we're experiencing most of the problem when I ask people exactly where they were riding.
I ride down there all the time, they're flats, but.
Well, as you can imagine, I mean, we've lost probably at least 10 bike shops in the last 3 years.
Yep.
So now, there's us and Tony's in about a 45-mile radius. So when it comes to these types of service issues, we're quite a funnel, and we see a lot of it. So yeah, I know if you ask an individual, they may not have had a problem. But that being said, we've got some customers that have had, 2, 3 of the same exact thing.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Follow up with John and M&O.
Tom, have you seen any of that with your group or?
I have seen those, and I mean, they're so small that literally, I'm out on the street. And like you said, it's the hole in the tube. You never find the obstruction, the offending fiber in the tube. You always find it in the tire.
If you're lucky.
And so, literally, I have to, you run your fingers over it, you hope to feel it. You have to do the same thing, pump it up, map the hole once you find it. And then, and some of those holes are so fine that you have to hold it right up by your face. Otherwise, you just can't hear it or feel it because it's so small.
When you take the tube out of the tire, it doesn't have nearly as much pressure.
Right.
So we have to inflate them much bigger than the tire and hold them underwater to try and figure out where it's coming from. But it's one of those things where it's not going to go pop and all of a sudden you got a flat and you're on the side of the road. You can take your bike out the next day and find that you got a flat.
And as far as bringing in the piece, frequently, and I don't know what is the offending part. I'm kind of interested now. The piece of fiber that's in there, that's clearly the problem because you kind of map it out by keeping the tube and the tire oriented correctly together. And then, the piece of fiber is so small, you have to pull them out with your teeth because you can't get it with your fingers, and nobody has a a pair of tweezers along with them in
Yeah.
the bicycle kit.
Yeah, we use tweezers, we use a really bright light to try and get the steel to flash, because part of the problem is that when you run your finger on the inside, many times it's not protruding when the tire is deflated. But when the tire is inflated, then it sticks out enough to make a puncture in the tube.
Right.
So you can't always feel it with your fingers either, but you could usually take a bright light and figure out where it is and then try and dig it out.
It'd certainly be nice to figure out if those wire brushes are doing that and see if there's something else that, you know, maybe they can't retire them right away, but it'd be nice if they stopped buying the ones that did this, or they just, you know, went anti-bike entirely and started throwing out glass behind all the street sweepers.
All right, well, I don't think that's gonna happen. Okay, so 2 issues to follow up with, on, out of the public comment, both excellent, comments, and we'll try to get back to everybody, hopefully before the next meeting, but at least at the next meeting. And, we're a little bit behind schedule, so I wanna move on to the new business. Thanks, everybody.
So John, this is mostly for you. I mean, it could be in an email. The lights in the 295 and US 13 tunnels of the Markel Trail have been out for, I think, a couple of months. And we did put in a, request, did the official request for maintenance
through Newcastle County.
So with those lights in the 295 and 13, I mean, those are held out tunnels. The US 13 tunnel and the 295 tunnel.
I thought Newcastle County maintains it.
I mean, they maintain the trail,
But that includes lights. I
think they maintain each of those. Okay.
can figure that out.
Yep.
Okay, great. Moving on to new business. Antonina. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well. How are you?
Great. So you're going to be doing a presentation tonight on Delaware River Trail feasibility study completed by Newcastle, which was one of our grant awards.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Again, for the
Thank
grant.
you.
With me, I have Brad Erb and Angie Hernandez from JMT. I'll just and also Councilman Mataway, who's in the room with you all. So we were awarded the grant last year to conduct a feasibility study to connect residents north of the historic area of the city to the downtown historic area, and also allow for alternative routes for transportation, and also highlight the beautiful Delaware River and, bike along the river and view the historic area and allow for a greater transportation throughout the city. So we have a presentation to share. Are we able to share it on the screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share.
Okay.
Are you sharing that, Tom? Or you want them to share?
If she can share, it might be easier.
You guys want to go ahead and share on your end?
Yeah, I can.
Do you want to share your screen? So
Screen,
Angie
yeah.
will go through that presentation for us, and then we are all available to answer any questions.
Here, I'm only working with one screen, so bear with me. Can you see the presentation?
Slowly loading. If you can move that one box on the right would be great. It's blocking part of the slide. There you
How
go.
about now?
That's good.
All right, so Angie Hernandez with JMT. So I'm our lead planner for this project, and we have Brad Herb here with us doing the engineering piece of it. So Brad and I are going to tag team this presentation, but I'll start by just getting us rolling here. So what we're going to talk about during this brief presentation is we're going to go over the scope of what our study was. We're going to show you the purpose and need that we developed as part of this study, talk about the stakeholder coordination that's happened, give you a sense of what the existing conditions are out there, show you what we come up with trail concept, and then we're going to talk about cost estimates and what kind of next steps look like for this study. So the scope of the study, so it was funded using the 2025 Delaware Bikeway Grant Program. We have a $23,000 study. So within that study, we had to keep a pretty tight scope of work. So what we did with the study was the existing conditions assessment. So we did a lot of desktop assessment. We also did some field visits to get out there and try to figure out what was the most feasible path for this pathway to go through. And then we developed the purpose and need, which is, really helpful in framing why this project matters, why it's important, and what it's going to do. We did create concept maps to illustrate potential alignments, looking at surface treatments and some of the design features as well. The conceptual level cost estimate, which is really meant to inform future funding efforts to help bring this project into full fruition. There is a final report as well that goes along with this study that kind of documents all the findings, the recommendations, and next steps, and kind of puts everything together so that this effort isn't lost. But I do want to emphasize what was not included in this study. So no final design, no engineering, no land acquisitions right away, none of that. We have identified the impacts, but there have not been any acquisitions or negotiations that have happened. We did start some coordination with private property owners. We weren't planning on it, but it just kind of happened and seemed like a good use of our time to start some of that coordination early. We didn't do any detailed environmental studies, no permitting's been done, no soil geotech. There's been no public engagement either. A little bit of stakeholder coordination, like I said, but no public engagement. We did not do a construction cost refinement, no phasing plans, none of that was done. No surveying property boundaries. We've been using existing tax maps and information that we have about who owns what out there, and no utility coordination has been done either. So to give you kind of the high level view of the purpose and need of this project would enhance connectivity, safety, and resilience by creating a continuous multimodal corridor. It's going to connect a lot of destinations, which we'll talk about more. Once this project is connected, it does have the opportunity and could position itself to help reduce some reliance on single occupancy vehicles. The destinations that it connects are only really reachable right now by single occupancy vehicles. It's going to give a new, safer route for a lot of vulnerable populations out there. And it does provide an opportunity to integrate resilient design strategies to withstand climate impacts and just ensure the long-term sustainability of the project. It is along the river, so the sustainability is very important. The stakeholder coordination. So I mentioned we've gotten started with that. So Bike Delaware has been involved. They actually helped us out with the field visit and some of the conversations we've had about the trail alignment. We've also been talking with DENREC. There's a parcel that the city owns, but there's a DENREC easement across the property that we would have to coordinate with them. So we've already started that coordination effort. And then Harvey Hanna, they have a lot of properties out here that we need to work with them to figure out how to get the trail to traverse across their frontage areas or through their properties. So we've already started those conversations as well. So existing conditions, again, we got out and did a field walk early, I think it was last spring, if my memory serves me right. So just going to walk through kind of what we found in our field walk, the existing conditions that are out there, and some of the mapping and whatnot that we've provided as well. So first, to give you kind of a sense of where this trail is. So as you can see on the map on the screen, Newcastle's on the left. The trail would start where there's already a little bit of a trail that goes through the park there. We'd be extending that out, heading along the Broad Dyke Wetlands Natural Area. And then continuing further up the river. So once we get to this area here, let's see if I can point. This is where the Harvey Hanna properties come in. And this is where we have some different options of either going up and behind through their properties or trying to stay by the river. There are significant added costs of staying along the river here. I'll kind of show you some photos of why that's an additional cost, but just wanted to kind of emphasize, that we're still not sure what the most feasible option is. That's why there's different lines here on the screen. So the red is what we're calling the main kind of preferred route that this path could take. The orange is the alternate path. Once it gets past the Harvey Hanna properties, again, continuing along the river, connecting up through there are some industrial areas here, but not as constrained as this section of it, connecting to the Charter School of Newcastle. And then these purple lines are actually ones that we're still kind of exploring now to see about extending the pathway further on Lucan's Drive. There is a development plan here, which I have a slide to show that as well. But looking at the opportunity to just get this trail as far as we can, maybe eventually expanding all the way out Lucan's Drive with it. The Buttonwood community back here as well, just making sure they have good access to the pathway. So we're not sure if a trail makes sense to connect directly into Buttonwood. It might be more on-road improvements, sidewalk enhancements, things like that to get the connectivity. So also on the map, moderate equity focus area of the Buttonwood community and a couple other of the communities back here. So it is, you know, a equity focus to get these folks more transportation access to access goods and jobs and services and all of that. Again, this path could connect Newcastle to all of this economic development and future plans, and then vice versa. It's really a great opportunity for not just a recreational facility, but also a real transportation connection as well. So I mentioned a little bit about the land use that we have out here. This map here shows land use in the different colors. So you can see we have some residential areas that the trail is going to connect, but for the largest part of where the trail is actually going to go, it's going to go through green space and industrial land use areas. But there's lots of, you know, opportunities of, you know, connecting these points around there. The Buttonwood Mansion, if you're not familiar, this is a historic site. There's nothing currently happening at the Buttonwood. It's pretty buttoned up right now, as you can see from the photos. So it is a property that the trail would go by. You'd want to, you know, make sure that we're protecting the historic integrity of that property, but it does, it's part of this study. So I mentioned the development on Lucan's Drive. This is where we're looking at possibly extending the trail further. So this development is the flats at River Edge. So it's a bunch of mixed use type of housing coming in, commercial spaces, some other public amenity type of spaces. So currently their sketch plan here has a sidewalk along Lucan's Drive, but the city's trying to work with them to see if they'd be willing to convert that sidewalk into a shared use path, so that this project would, you know, kind of create a connection with the future Delaware River Trail as well. So ongoing coordination happening there. Like I mentioned, we didn't do any kind of detailed environmental review. This was just kind of a desktop screening so that we understood what we were getting into out there. So it should be no surprise, there's a lot of water. We're talking about a waterfront trail. So a lot of wetlands out through here, flood prone areas. The trail is actually on, you know, would go on top of an existing dike. So that is an engineering challenge that needs to be worked through. Looking at the dike elevations, they might need to be raised. We did find that there has been some study of those dikes, but nothing too detailed at this point. A lot more
Hey, Angie.
conversation. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so about 10 or 12 years ago, the dike was improved up to elevation 8.5, and then another study was done later in 2019, and it found that FEMA had adjusted their 100-year flood elevation up to 9, so those dikes are currently just about 6 inches lower than the 100-year floodplain.
Thanks, Brad.
And if I could
yeah,
just jump in as well, just further detail on that. We have a flood resiliency committee and we are looking at all possible alternatives to raise the dikes and deal with flood mitigation. As you likely know, there's a lot of funding loss lately around flood mitigation and mitigation in general. So we are looking at all alternatives for resolving these issues.
Thanks, Christina. All right, so a little bit more of just existing conditions. I think I've already talked about this. The existing transportation infrastructure is really heavily vehicle reliant to kind of get between these 2 points. So this facility would provide bike walk connection that really doesn't exist currently and get folks off of much more busier routes that they have to take now. So moving into the trail concepts we're looking at, Brad, do you want to go ahead and run through these alignments a little bit more?
Sure. So the trail starts at the left side here. near the park, and it it runs along the river, and then there's a dike, which it would be the alignment would be on top of the dike, and then we get up to the Denrec easement area, and we show an orange line passing up through there. There is language in the conservation easement that allows for a 6 foot wide gravel trail through that piece of property, and it also allows for a trailhead for parking to access the trail. Continuing on is as we approach the green areas, which are Harvey Hanna controlled properties. That's where the raised boardwalks would begin. We're passing through environmentally sensitive areas here. We can get the path back on some land in front of one of their buildings, but then we'd have more raised boardwalk. It's kind of hard to see, but it's highlighted in green there. And then once we get out of that green area, we're back on top of the dikes, continuing along the river frontage up to the white building there on the right is the Maison property, and the Buttonwood Mansion. We cross through there, and that's on grass. That's pretty straightforward how to pass the area through there. And then the red, we have another raised boardwalk area here along the riverfront before we can connect to the Newcastle Charter School and pass through their grass area and parking lot in order to get up to Lucan's Drive, excuse me. So the path in general is about 10 feet wide on top of the dike. This is some pictures of, there's a worn path already through the Denrec easement. Basically, the description of permitted use, basically you're not allowed to do much clearing of trees. You'd be putting some gravel down on top of these worn paths in order to provide a more defined pathway. And that would lead to a trailhead. This is along the front of the Zenith building, which is Harvey Hanna controlled. There's about a 10-foot wide flat area here, and then it drops off. It's 4 to 6 foot vertical drop here. This could be a combination of some sort of raised boardwalk that would potentially extend down over that drop off and then rest on top of this 10-foot area. But that would be the plan, is to try to navigate the path across the Zenith frontage here. This is again some parking lot area. The red dot in the bottom left picture shows the approximate location where this picture is taken, but we would want to stay off of the parking area because they do have tractor trailers driving here. So we'd be looking to find a pathway for the trail through the grass area and maybe require some clearing here. And in the bottom left is the dike area. Once we get east of the Harvey Hanna control properties, it's pretty straightforward here. We would build a path up on top of there. And then in the top left is some of the Maison frontage, and you can see the Buttonwood Mansion there just off to the left. Again, this is pretty straightforward to build a path on top of this gravel drive that already exists. And then across the Maison frontage, it's basically just a grass area. So again, really straightforward here to continue the path through there.
So this here is just a map showing the property access. I think Brad's kind of already talked through that a lot, but we're continuing to engage with Denrec about the easement and what options we have there, and then as well as working with Harvey Hanna to work this through. So coordination started, but a lot to be continued as this project progresses forward. So Brad, you want to give an overview of the cost estimates and what this all means?
Sure. So we put together estimates. We broke it out on environmental studies, prelim engineering, real estate acquisitions, and construction. Total estimated cost is about $6.3 million. Right now, we estimated the construction of the trail to be about $4.9 million. However, I think it's really important to point out that maintaining that path along the Delaware River frontage requires what we estimated to be over 2,200 linear feet of the raised boardwalk. And we used a unit cost of about $1,500 per linear feet. So the cost of that boardwalk alone is $3.4 million. So that's really what is driving the cost of the construction. We did show some of those alternative alignments. If some of those alternative alignments were utilized, I do understand it wouldn't be along the riverfront, but there could be some substantial savings recognized if we were to explore one or two of those other areas to help bring the cost down. But the city is passionate about maintaining it along the riverfront area. So if that were to hold true, then we'd be looking about 6.3 million.
Great. So next steps, like I mentioned, this was just kind of the beginning, the feasibility study. So future efforts should include all those things I mentioned at the beginning that were excluded from this study. So getting that final alignment determined, understanding, what property access and easements would work out and would be needed. Looking at the flood resiliency, the dike elevation, figuring that out, working with the various stakeholders on that. And then moving through all the things that you typically do at these projects, the environmental studies, the permitting, the geotechnical subsoil, subsurface investigations, getting in front of the public, engaging with them to really build that community support for the project, because this is the most public presentation that we've given so far on this project. And then refining that construction cost estimate and figuring out a phasing plan. If funding can only be made available in chunks, how can this thing be built out over time, and how is that funding going to come together? Doing all the survey property determinations, the coordination with utilities if needed, and anything like that we might find in further study. So again, it's been a great kind of foundational feasibility study, but a lot more to happen to bring this project into fruition. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I don't know, John, do we have time for questions, or how do you want to handle it?
Yeah, we do.
Could I chime in and just add something supplemental to the presentation? Whenever appropriate. Okay. Again, it's been a pleasure to work with Angie and Brad from JMT, and we're certainly thankful to the Bike Council for the generous grant. I am here on behalf of the city of Newcastle to say thank you. That this is more than just a transportation path. This is something that's going to connect our community, create community cohesiveness, and something that has been lacking, unfortunately, for generations. While this is the most public interfacing presentation of the work that's been done, we have had community and engagement over the years and received feedback through our 2009 and 2020 comprehensive plans, in which residents have talked about in these areas being cut off from the historic core, cut off from some of our historic treasures that we have, et cetera. And so this is a step forward to get to a point to where we can actually do some action steps. In regards to the references of a couple of the historical treasures that this path would traverse, I would just like to highlight a couple of them. So the Buttonwood Mansion, there is some work that's been done to the Buttonwood Mansion. The overseers of that property have been recipients of some preservation Delaware grants, and they're working to redo the roof and do some things. So there is some movement there. There was a reference to the Buttonwood community that this proposed project would go through. There's also a Buttonwood Color School that is a color school museum that this path would go through. Additionally, as we get closer to the historic core of Newcastle, you would pass the historic Glebe Cemetery, which is owned by the historic Emmanuel Church. And then finally, as you get to historic Newcastle core, it would put you at the footsteps of Fort Casimir. And that is a historic fort that goes back to the founding of the city. And then I would also like to mention that at the time he was county executive. But now Governor Meyer has been out to the site, especially around the Buttonwood Mansion. So this is something that he has been aware of again when he was county executive. And then I would just finally like to mention that this is something that we believe would boost our community also in respect to tourism and economic development. So I'll pause there, but just want to thank the council for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Who's got questions for the Newcastle team?
I guess the grant committee is gonna be having a teams meeting, John, right? Team meeting?
Were they all teams meetings, John?
No, some of them were not.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So I think there are some questions here, but maybe in the interest of time, you know, the grant committee will have some questions at the upcoming teams meeting.
Absolutely, happy to answer them whenever.
Great, thanks, guys. Thanks for your presentation. It's an awesome project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the time.
I had my hand up. I guess nobody.
Oh,
saw
I'm
it.
sorry, Mike. I didn't see that. Go ahead.
The only question I had, and I really like what you're doing, but is there an obvious connection to Battery Park? Because a lot of cyclists and people are in that area, but it seems like it's a street connection, and there ought to be some kind of a wayfinder sign or some way to connect that park area to the trail.
Yeah, absolutely. There's many alternative routes that they can get to Battery Park. They can go down the Strand off of the Fort Casimir site. They can go down 2nd Street, turn onto Delaware, and get down to the wharf and access the trail there. And of course, once, you know, we hope to get to the installation phase and construction phase of the trail, we would of course include proper signage and directions to access Battery Park. Because a big reason for wanting this trail is to connect more of the city to Battery Park and to connect those from the historic area to other areas of the city. So absolutely, that is all part of the connectivity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would say that the Strand would be the primary way to connect from Bull Hill Park down to Battery Park.
Mhm.
Okay, don't see any other hands raised. Thanks again, guys. Next up, James wants to bring an issue before the council regarding mopeds on trails and pathways.
Thank you, sir. So it's 6:08. Let's see how close to 6:13 I can be finished with this. As folks know, there was a fatality on September 12th at this location in Dover. There were 2 kids on a bike going down that pathway, and there was a turning school bus, and the passenger on the bike was killed in the crash. So this is Reese Yoke Santos. He was 14 years old, and he died in that crash. There was a candlelight vigil the day after the crash. Governor Meyer attended that. He is remembered extremely fondly by his community. This is the statement put out by the Delaware State Police. You see a little yellow thing there, the little yellow boxes. The police talk about that the collision was between a school bus and an electric bicycle. Electric bicycles traveling on what they're calling a sidewalk, would be more accurately called a trail. In fact, the bike that was involved in the crash is a RideStar bike, which I'd never heard of before. If you go online and ask for the most popular models, RideStar bike models. These, you can see these down bottom, Q20, H20, MN20. None of those most popular examples of RideStar products are actually legally electric bicycles. Most would be considered mopeds. So although it was reported as an electric bicycle fatality, it probably was not an electric bicycle that was involved. There's actually, even though, when you're at the line between an electric bicycle and a moped, there's, for the highest speed electric bicycles and the very low speed mopeds, as they approach the line between those two, they're fairly similar, but there is this sharp dividing line that has been drawn in law. So under 28 miles per hour, it's an electric bicycle. Over 28 miles per hour, electric powered vehicle with two wheels, that is a moped in state law. And it's an important line, right? So underneath the line, when you're riding an electric bicycle, you do not require a driver's license. But if you're riding a moped, something that can go over 28 miles per hour, you are not legally permitted to operate that device without a regular standard driver's license. So I think we need education about this. What I want to say, I've only got, if I'm going to stick with my 5-minute deadline, I've only got 1 minute left. So the last kind of point I want to make is that I think I haven't heard anybody who I've talked to this about hasn't said education is super important. But Mike Wagner and I attended the Delaware Highway Safety Summit last week, and he may have heard some of the same things I heard from the police there, which I'd sort of heard before, but I don't think I'd ever heard it emphasized quite as strongly and clearly as it was at the Delaware Highway Safety Summit last week. I heard several police officers say, yeah, you want to have some traffic safety message that you're getting across to people, but the reality is that doesn't usually work very well unless enforcement is in the picture. And the example here is, I think, the most successful, the most effective traffic safety campaign of all time. We literally, all of us have like a few neurons in our brains stuck on this traffic safety campaign. We've all heard it, click it or ticket. It's just, how many times have we heard it? But the point is, it's not just, fasten your seatbelt so you're safe. Fasten your seatbelt so your kids are safe. Don't be a moron and don't do your ticket. Don't do your seatbelt. The campaign is click it or ticket. In other words, if you do not click your seatbelt on, the police may see you and they may write you an expensive ticket that you do not want to pay. And that was the message that Mike Wagner and I think heard a couple of times. Mike, I don't know if you remember hearing that. I feel like I heard it from more than one trooper last Thursday.
I heard it. I mean, there's a variety of things we have to do, and you're describing an unfortunate scene that happened. As I told you, about 200 yards from my house. I live right down the street from that.
So again, I'm now 1 minute over. I'm going to try to finish up. To educate, what I want to say is to educate about mopeds, we need enforcement, at least in the background. And for enforcement, we need signs, because you can't give a ticket. If we put a no mopeds allowed sign on the Lewis to Georgetown Trail or the Markel Trail or the pathway where this crash in Dover was, you can't. There's just no way in practice to give somebody a ticket unless there's a sign there. So what I want to propose that the council ask the department to do is to create some of these signs and install them on the pathways where we need to get this message out that mopeds are not allowed. I'll say one more thing. There was a, I think it was front page poll on the Cape Gazette just within the last week or two, which asked whether electric bicycles should be banned on the trails, you know, down near the beaches. And the last voting sum that I saw was that over 50% of people said that electric bicycles should be banned. But as the slides that I just showed you, there was a fatality here just a couple weeks in Dover, and there was no electric bicycle involved. It was a moped. And if we do not make it clear that mopeds are not allowed on our trails and pathways here in Delaware, we are going to see increasingly loud calls for bans of electric bicycles. So not only is it a safety issue that we discourage people from buying mopeds if they want to ride on these trails, but we will, I predict, if we do not do that, we will be facing increasingly loud calls for electric bicycles to be banned on trails, because people do not know the difference between electric bicycles.
I'll read it out.
That's all. I'm sorry. I'm like 2 minutes.
Sergeant Wheatley has his hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know we went back and forth on email with this, and I directed the chain to Corporal Booth, and I hope that he was more than willing to take some questions and to speak about the crash as much as he could, because it's a fatal crash. But a couple things.
He was really happy to hear that this was not an issue that was like nobody else was thinking about, because he's, you know, obviously dealing with this horrible and horrifying crash. And so he was really happy that I said this was going to be on the agenda of the Delaware Bicycle Council.
Yeah, I spoke to him probably around 4 o'clock today, specifically about this topic, so that I was A, informed, and B, could make some decent suggestions. So I want to just address a couple things. So the news release that goes out, and I'm sure that he fills you in on this, that tries to go out within an hour or two of the crash. So it's not all that information is going to be accurate when it comes out. They just try to get the most accurate information. Now, whether it's an electric bike or a moped, some research on Corporal Booth's part would have to go in depth on how fast that moped goes. And the line of 28 miles an hour, they're not going to know that within an hour or two of the crash. So that information would come out from our public information officer. And again, she may call it a sidewalk. As a less informed person, us on the panel know it's going to be a trail. Just so a little bit of defense for my coworkers there, but
John, if anything I said came across as sort of critical of the police, I did not mean that at all.
No, and I didn't take it that way. Just clearing a little bit of the mud out of the water, since it's a public forum, and just so everybody knows. Secondly, if they're going to post signs on the trail, they need to have it spelled out clearly. The 20, just like you had in the slide, 28 miles an hour and up is considered a moped, and that's not allowed. 28 miles and under is considered an electric bike. There was a comment that came through on this Zoom that is very much true, that people traditionally don't consider the bikes with the pedals to be mopeds in their minds, because they're not educated to the fact that the 28 miles an hour makes a difference in the classification. Just like back in the day, it used to be CCs. It was like anything over a 50 cc displacement engine was considered one thing, or it could be a motorcycle or a moped, or so that part of that education would be critical if they put those signs up. And then as far as like enforcement goes, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some type of federal grant money through DelDOT that could pay to have enforcement on the trails once those signs are posted, so that we can kind of hit this from all angles. And it helps support your belief, and I agree with you fully, not from a state police perspective, from my personal perspective, that if we don't do something and they allow this motorcycle or mopeds to continue on there, it will spoil the electric bike ride. And a lot of the senior citizens enjoy that electric bike ride, and they're going to end up getting kicked off the trail because of mopeds. And I'm going to stop there and let everyone else continue.
That's what I'm afraid of. You know, you've got, you know, the aging couple, and one of them, they've loved biking together for decades, and they're sort of aging slightly differently. And, you know, one of the spouses can't really keep up with their other spouse, but, you know, they go to the local bike shop and get an electric bike, and, you know, they can keep on pedaling together. You know, I can totally see us getting into sort of, you know, throwing the baby out with the bathwater situation here if we do not draw a line and go, you know, these higher, we cannot allow these higher speed ones on these trails. By doing that, I think we will protect, you know, the electric bikes on the trails.
Fran.
I agree.
Thanks, John. Fran's hand is up.
Yeah, Scott, I want to throw this out before this goes too far. This 28 mile an hour thing, number one, that's way too fast on a mixed use trail. And Tom can tell you, we ride with plenty of people that can do well over 28 miles an hour without an electric motor. So 28 miles an hour should not be some sort of standard on a trail. It shouldn't be any more than probably 15. And the 28 mile an hour thing with electric bikes is where the assist cuts out. It doesn't mean the bike won't go faster than that. If you've got a strong enough rider, they can go over 28 miles an hour without an e-bike or with an e-bike. The bike's not going to stop at 28 miles an hour. So this 20 mile an hour thing needs to be, you know, we need to put that in the background. That's just a limit for certain e-bikes. That's the motor's limit. That's where it will cut out the assist. But you can keep pedaling faster than that. And like I said, that's way too fast on a trail.
And Fran, James and I talked about that a little bit, and it's almost like we need two signs. One is because this is defining for the people and trying to educate them that a electric bike that goes over 28 miles an hour is no longer considered an electrical bicycle. It's an electric moped. And then quite frankly,
or an electric motorcycle. And I've seen plenty of them on trails here and elsewhere, but the 28 mile an hour, you know, you don't want somebody going 27 miles an hour on a mixed use trail where people are walking their dogs or pushing their strollers, or it's
right.
just.
Well, that's the reason why I'm saying, Fran, where we put this sign up to educate people what a moped is, we want to remind them that we're not telling them to go 28 miles an hour any more than I can do 100 miles an hour in my van, which it will do downhill. We need to put a sign up at the same time that says speed limit 15. And then this is the no mopeds, which just tells them what a moped is. Because like you're saying, Fran, at some speed, and I don't know what it is because I haven't read the statute involving mopeds, but if it goes over 45 miles an hour, it's not a moped anymore, it's a motorcycle. Well, hopefully we don't see too many of the motorcycles, because the things that look like motorcycles that still do less than 45 miles an hour or some other number like that, they're still mopeds. They're not really motorcycles, although they look like motorcycles.
There's one other thing I didn't mention, Fran, that you might be interested in. So I host a call with people who have my job in other states, and once a month. And last month, the topic was these higher speed electric devices. And it was a shocking call to me. So I was hearing from people from Illinois and Hawaii and Texas, and some of them were saying they are spending more time on this issue than like anything else. Like all these other things, they like to be working on, you know, whatever infrastructure and laws and all kinds of things. Like that's all like been pushed to the back burner while they try to get out in front of just sort of the enormous public anger because of the incredible growth in there's just been these devices have come on the market. And if you go online, like if you're in front of your computer, like Google electric bike for kids, it won't come up with like what is legally an electric bicycle, to come up with one of these mopeds, something that goes 30, 35 miles per hour. But the title of the product is electric bike for kids, which is in Delaware, like completely deceptive. Like you can't be a kid and run it. But the sales of these are just exploding, and they're causing an enormous public backlash when they show up on trails and pathways.
Can I make one clarification? Sorry, Fran.
That's right.
So just want to clear up one thing. In Delaware code, a moped is a thing which can have pedals, and it has a motor, an electric motor, like it has a gas motor, that's an option, like Sergeant Wheatley said, of a certain size. But there's also a specific motor rating that is between 751 watts and 2000 watts. The highest class e-bike is 3, and that can have a motor up to 750 watts. So there is actually a distinct line that James was talking about that's not really miles per hour, but it's related to the size of the motor that's on the whatever it is. That is already built into Delaware code.
It's
Yeah, Florida just passed a law like that. The bike club that I ride with down in Florida, they because Florida codified it, the club no longer allows anything over 750 to be on a group ride. So yeah, there are places that are codifying it. It's just and like so many other things, the laws tend to lag behind the technology. And and I think there needs to be some education as to what is a bicycle and what's not.
That's my point. Like we actually are okay on the law side. When the state passed the law to put electric bicycles in code, it also clarified, that anything beyond the class 3 electric bicycle is a moped. So we're actually okay on the law. What we are nowhere with is education. And here's my basic message. We can't effectively educate without at least the potential for enforcement in the background. And we can't do that without a sign on these trails.
Most places I've been, James, where, on a trail in other states, it's not a no moped sign, it's a no motorized vehicle.
Yeah, so that doesn't do it for us. Like, that could be anything.
Stephanie Johnson has her hand up.
Good evening. So I just wanted to, so I'm the director of planning here at DelDOT. And I actually am very close friends with the family of Reese who passed. And so shortly after that accident, I came into the office to talk to John and Jeff because my concern specifically is around the education. And so I've talked to John, talked to Jeff and Anthony, and so we're going to be exploring ways in which we can potentially work with the Department of Education, Homeland Security, see what other federal partners we can potentially work with to identify opportunities to increase the education. I will say I attended the candlelight vigil while I was there. I looked at the infrastructure. I also looked at the signage, and that many of the kids didn't even recognize that stop sign as a stop sign for bikes. So there's just an overall lack of education. I know our team has worked and continues to work on bicycle education for I think 3rd to 5th grade, but I think we need to be focused on a different perspective and a different age group, that being the schoolers, because they are the ones that are also purchasing these bikes. They're a cheaper option, cars, bikes or mopeds. I think that that's the other thing is we can put up a sign that says moped, but when I look at that sign, that bike doesn't look like that picture on that sign. And so, and I think if vendors are selling it as an e-bike, then there's a possibility that kids that have it don't associate what or their families aren't associating it with a moped. It looks like a bike. So I think we need to be very strategic and mindful about how the signage and the education is working, and really working with families and students or young people to be able to make sure that what we know in this group, all of you guys and not me, but are very educated in the bicycle world. But a lot of these younger people are just trying to find a means in which to get somewhere quickly, and without having to purchase a vehicle, so a car. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we keep in mind the limited education that these have when we think about the signs that we're going to put out. But at the same time, my team will be working to address that.
You know, I don't know whether the other kid on that moped is going to be charged, but I don't see how, like, I feel like it's not his fault. I mean, I don't know anything about him, but like, he was on this moped. He surely did not know what the difference between moped and electric bicycle is. Even the police don't really understand that distinction. Like, I feel like it's all of us who are sort of like collectively at fault in that crash. And that's kind of what motivated me to put these slides together. We need to, you know, over the next few years, we need to get the message out to kids like that, yeah, they can be on a bike that has some electric assist, but there's a line. You know, it's not one of these high-speed mopeds. It's one of these lower-speed electric bikes. We have to get that message out to them, and I don't see an effective strategy to get that message out to kids and make it so that they're not, these mopeds are not getting into their hands if we do not do what I'm proposing here. Like, we need the signs on the pathways. We need some NHTSA money to come, so one day the police can be out on the trails, not giving tickets, but just giving warnings one day. And every community organization we can think of are going to be out there taking photos of the police pulling aside a kid on a moped and giving him just a warning, no ticket. You know, get that out on social media. Like, you know, don't ride a moped on. You know, it's illegal to ride a moped on the trails. It's okay to ride an e-bike. Just again, what I heard at the Delaware Highway Safety Summit before, you can try to talk to people until you're blue in the face. And what I heard over and over and over again from police officers at the Delaware Highway Safety Summit last year is, if you do not have kind of enforcement, at least sort of theoretically there in the background, you're just blowing in the wind.
Fran, did you have anything else? Your hand's still up.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't. I'm good. I just wanted to throw that speed thing out there. It's just like, it's crazy dangerous to allow anything that goes up to 20, even some only goes up to 28 miles an hour.
But that's the reason why, and Fran, that the sidewalk e-bikes and even the road bikes, e-bikes that Ross and I have will do 28, but of course we're not going to be doing 28 on the trail. That's why we have to reinforce this sign with a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. We're trying to keep the bikes off there that aren't designed to be on there.
I get it, Tom, and I really feel like there should be speed limit signs on the trails.
Absolutely.
And that would probably reduce some of the tension out there between the pedestrians and the cyclists. But you know, I think the electric moped thing is a separate issue.
Stephanie, are you trying to adopt some kind of signage yourself as far as to mitigate the possibility of another tragedy like we had?
I mean, I am working with the team to be able to identify ways in which we can definitely mitigate these types of accidents and educate the public. I think my concern is really high school high school students essentially that just aren't educated. We haven't the purchase of these vehicles way got way out in front of the education that we've been able to provide.
Right.
Not against these signs at all, because I do agree that it's important, the idea of doing the warning, because I think that's a means in which we can get their attention. But just this sign that says no mopeds, there's no pedals that I can see on that. So I'm not sure that someone, you know, who has purchased one would think that that's what they have. So just a thought.
Scott, can I make a motion that we at least put it to a vote as far as support of some kind of signage that tries to reinforce the fact that an e-bike that goes over 28 miles an hour is not legally an e-bike, and regardless of what the sign is, and see if we can task DelDOT with finding something or developing something, because James, not picking on you, he threw this together. Get a bike that looks more like an e-bike.
Sure. So a couple things for the council in general, and yes, Tom, you can make whatever motion you want to make. But just so everybody's aware, signs are just not this willy-nilly thing that happened. Like, not that James' thing is willy-nilly, but there is a manual that DelDOT has for signs. It kind of flows down from the Federal Highway Administration. So there is a process to create a sign. So like, I think our motion needs to be fit into what we can ask that somebody can do. I don't think it's realistic to ask DelDOT to make James's sign exactly the way it is, because even Stephanie pointed out that it's not really universal in the way that people see it. So in the manual for signs, they have 5 criteria, like it has to be explicit. There's a couple other things. So how is this motion going to be crafted that we're doing this the right way?
And Scott, is that same, because is that AASHTO?
No, it's called the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Well, you guys have to have an acronym for that too. But does that pertain to signs on trails?
Yes, the signs on trails are in that manual. Yes.
Okay, so
that, be a little careful there, right? So I think if you actually read the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, it's the traffic that they're referring to is vehicular traffic. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but it may be that a sign that just goes on a trail might not be subject to the same, because they're just putting it on a street or a road.
Because they're smaller than the standard signs.
Yeah, that could be true. I don't know.
And so can we at least say that for the trails is to do something to try to get signage? See if John can come up with something. Did Bike Delaware, James, to put any funding towards a sign?
Yeah, we'll kick in $1,000.
$1,000 for what?
Signs.
To make signs.
Yeah.
And if that will help people make a decision.
And so
kick in
since
$1,000.
it's one of the more popular trails, along with the one up north too, who controls which trails are DNREC and which trails are
Well, I think you're getting off topic a little bit. Like, the issue on the table is, do we want to ask DelDOT to make a sign?
Yes, please make a sign.
So hold on a second.
I'd like to make a motion to come up with a sign for restricting high-speed e-bikes, mopeds on trails. High-speed e-bikes that are mopeds on trails.
Can I just ask a question before we go there? Is that really the goal, or is it speed? I mean, would it be more effective to have a speed sign as opposed to a type of vehicle?
How are we going to So again, I was the only one in this call with my counterparts from around the country. So none of you heard the despair and desperation and just like,
Well, the crazy thing, James, is I actually heard it in Amsterdam when I was there like 5 years ago.
So
because they have the same problem.
They have had the same problem in other states, and I think we should expect to see it here sooner rather than later. I mean, maybe we just saw the very first sort of sign of it with this terrible crash in Dover 2 weeks ago. There's just this like wave of deceptive marketing that is targeting these kids, and that's what we need to get in front of. And what I'm trying to persuade everybody who's listening is that you could take your team and try to send them into fourth grade classes and try all that kind of thing. I don't think you have the capacity to do that, and even if you did, I don't think it would be effective. The only thing I think that will be effective is what I heard from the folks at the Delaware Highway Safety Summit. You need to have education with a little bit of a theoretical enforcement in the background.
We don't want a motorcycle going down the trails. We don't want a gasoline powered moped going down the trails. We don't want a 3,000 watt bicycle, e-bike, that is as fast as the gasoline powered thing going down the trail, because the 14 and 15-year-old and 13-year-old that are frequently on them, because frequently it's not the old folks that you're concerned with, it's the kids that have the extra horsepower, and they go 30 miles an hour because the speaking as a 66-year-old, I'm not going to be doing 30 miles an hour on the trail because it's just too fast for that environment. We need to have the signs up for 15 miles an hour, but we need to get signage up that tells them that you can't drive a motorcycle, you can't drive a gasoline powered moped, you can't drive a gas powered moped.
As we heard from Jackie when we were talking about Silverside and Searle Drive, there is federal money to hire police officers for exactly these kinds of enforcement actions. So as soon as we get signs out on, say, like the Lewis and Georgetown Trail, wherever else we want to put them, we can get some federal money. We can get a few troopers hired for the day with these federal enforcement dollars, and every time they pull somebody over and give them a ticket, we can, have all the community groups out there, taking photos and going, they didn't get a ticket today, but now they know that, mopeds are not allowed on the trails, and we can really build a sustained multi-year educational effort, letting people know that you could get a ticket. If you mistakenly buy one of these high-speed mopeds and try to take it on one of our amazing trails, we can do education. And what I'm trying to suggest is that's the only way forward that I see.
We got two public members that would like to speak, JT and Bill. So JT, can you go first, please?
Yes, so I am definitely in agreement with what you guys talk about with the signs and the trail usage. But the other one too that I think we should also have as a separate item is someone funding, either whether it's this council, Delta, or the state police, having some some information into whatever schools provide the students and parents at the beginning of each school year. To say, hey, this is information that if you're going to give these kids these vehicles, they have to have a driver's license. So, because parents aren't going to know that they need a driver's license to drive this. So, I think having something that you physically send to each parent, and send it through the school, and so every student that goes through a school in Delaware is provide that information, then the parents provide that information so that they're made aware of this situation, that they know that they can't just go out in Christmas and buy their kid something that can go over 20 miles per hour with a battery or something like that. So that's my 2 cents. So you have two things here. The one, the signage on trails and enforcement, and 2, education for the parents and kids saying, hey, you need to have a driver's license to be able to operate one of these vehicles.
Thanks, JT. Bill?
Thank you, Scott. When the motion gets put forward, I would ask about signage. You've just heard a suggestion of an education aspect, but the signage aspect, there were two aspects that I heard council members bring up that I'd like to make sure don't get lost. One is the type of vehicle that's allowed, and the second is speed. The speed limit sign is separate, as Tom, you were trying to explain. A speed limit sign on all the trails, I think, ought to be adopted as or recommended by the council to DelDOT that they start putting speed limit signs on the trails. And Tom, you were also saying there's also need for a type of vehicle definition sign. Just make sure that both of those things get captured, or separate motions, whatever, however you want to do it. That's what I would like to ask. Thank you.
Can I say something? Is the public comment? Sorry, I couldn't use my hand on this.
You're good.
Okay. Thank you for bringing this up. It's definitely something that I'm gonna continue to noodle on and bring back to my local community and try to make things better there, but also throughout the state. In furtherance of what the gentleman said online in respect to school districts and schools, I wonder if there's perhaps some type of curriculum, if you will, or something that could be first disseminated through the school districts and then out down through potentially the schools. No, with everything, there's process and procedure, but wondering about with these mopeds and high-speed e-bikes, if there's potential interest in speaking with state legislators about requiring a helmet and some type of legislation around that.
There already is.
You're required to wear a helmet for a moped and also on a class 3 electric bicycle.
Okay. Then in respect to the young people, wondering if DelDOT might be interested in creating something in regards to e-bikes, mopeds, as they go and do driver's ed, or the local schools have driver's ed programs for the young people.
As you're talking about that and talking about legislation, it really ought to be on the bike shops that are selling the bikes, knowing full well that the kid is riding the bike and he's required to have a helmet and a license. Yeah. And the kid's 13 years old. They should not be selling that bicycle to the parent knowing that the kid is going to be 13 years old driving the moped. But that's a different issue. We can't fix everything. That's a legislative thing. I'm just talking about signs. I think we ought to investigate signs to get something with mopeds.
Make a specific.
Yeah.
Do it one more, see if we get a second. Ask.
I'd like DelDOT to pursue the design of a sign for restricting mopeds from the trails.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor.
So we have a motion to make a request for DelDOT to say that again.
To design a sign to restrict moped use on trails.
What do you mean? Ask them, maybe to do a study how the sign, say, designed or not. What's the process now? Like, what is? I don't know the exact process. That's a good question. Okay. Just to tell them.
Any discussion from the council?
I think the motion may be more appropriate for DelDOT to explore the use of signage and enforcement on the trails and just leave it broad. I would be shocked if there's not already some type of national standard for that moped sign, so they can explore the signage itself, location, and enforcement, and then leave it at that is how I would probably word it.
So does
John, I'm open for saying the investigation of signage and enforcement to restrict electric mopeds from the bike trails.
Yeah, so the
Yeah,
only
and
issue
remember
with
You gotta include
Good.
DNREC in that too, is because DNREC, and they have their own enforcement arm that can enforce those laws on the portion of trails that they control as well. So maybe DelDOT and DNREC, just tweaks to this. That's all I'm offering.
So DelDOT is signs,
Yes,
state police are enforcement, and DENREC is enforcement.
yes,
So what are we asking then?
starting with the sign.
We're starting with just the sign. And we're asking DelDOT to explore creation of the sign.
Yes.
And let's come back at the next meeting and tell us what the situation is. Does that
Yes.
work?
Yes.
Okay.
The amended motion.
So,
Yep.
so, go ahead, make that, just get it on the record what the official motion is.
DelDOT recommend the design or find a sign. Explore. John, go ahead and give it a whirl. Put it into words. I already gave you context.
Tom is an engineer.
To explore the availability of signs that would restrict electric mopeds on bicycle trails.
Second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
John seconded that.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
And it quick, Scott.
This is Mike Tyler. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Mike.
I think a sign is going to be a waste of time. Especially if you're dealing with young people. I was on the road the other day, 45-mile-an-hour road. This kid on an electric bike comes right in front of me, and he knew he was holding me back because he's riding in the middle of the road. He doesn't care about signs. He thought he was, and he was up on the rear wheel with an electric bike. You're dealing with young people who have no concern about what the sign says. It's not going to do a darn thing. My feeling is you've opened the Pandora's box. I would ban all electric bikes on the trails. Everybody I've ever talked to about it, they all hate it. They say it's terrible. They don't know how to ride. They have, they don't have etiquette. And I just think we've opened a Pandora's box and we're not going to solve it by a sign. That's what I had to say. Sorry.
That's fine, Mike. Like, you might be right. So we're gonna vote on this?
Individual.
John wants to go individually.
All right, so, Lauren, your vote on the motion?
Yes.
Fran,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Marty,
He's going.
What happened to Marty?
Marty,
I think he said he had to go at like 5:45 or something.
Jackie,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Mike Tyler,
No.
Mike Wagner,
Yes.
Sergeant Wheatley,
Yes.
and James.
Yes.
And yes, 1 no.
Okay. So I'll just add to my list to follow up with you on that. Okay, we have 5 minutes left.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
I hope everyone knows I'm all about education, and education is very important. But when you want things to be disseminated, you have to really, through the Department of Education, you really have to nail down what the true ask is. Because I will just tell you, it's an enormous lift to get something like that done. There are there's only one statewide curriculum in the whole state, and that's driver education, and that just affects 10th grade students taking driver education. Every curriculum K through 12 is controlled by the local education agency. So if you're asking for education in e-bikes to be delivered across the state, it's an enormous heavy lift that will have to go through all the curriculum committees throughout the state. If you're asking for something to be sent home at the beginning of the school year to all students to have parents check off on the e-bikes, any one of you with children who get all that information from free and reduced lunch to school policies and procedures, you're literally given hundreds of pages to read at the beginning of the school year. So I don't want that. I don't want to take this lightly. When we say education, we need to be strategic about who we want to educate, why, and what's the most effective way to go about it. And just telling you that some of those recommendations, they are, and I'm all about education, but they are enormously heavy lifts.
We are, all of us, drowning in information. Like we are the most informed human beings who have ever lived on the planet. We just get a fire hose of stuff sent at us at all times. And it's wonderful, the idea to just go, hey, let's add this thing and educate people. And the reality is, that's just kind of not the world we're living in.
So, like, thanks for that, Mike. And I think it's just important for everybody to recognize that obviously the issue that James brought forth here is super important for several reasons. This is why we have the council. This is why we have people from different agencies on the council. In my opinion, this is probably one of the most important things since I've been on the council that we're going to look at. So thanks for everybody for contributing. Couple things on the agenda. We're going to move one of the new business items to next time. We don't need to vote on that tonight. It's not critical for tonight. Tom, can you just do a quick update on the grant application for the councils, and then we'll give somebody an opportunity to talk about the memorial plaque, and then we'll wrap it up.
We have 8 good proposals, the requests in for the grant. We have dates set up, and we've kind of combined them into 2 or 3. I drafted Fran back onto the committee now that she's back, and we're moving forward. Yeah,
that was just
was that Fran?
That was Fran.
Like having a stroke?
Okay, thanks, Tom. So we're moving the grant application addendum. We'll do that next time. But I did want to give an opportunity for an update on the memorial plaque if anybody has one.
No, I will say this, at the last meeting, Mike Crumrine was going to go back to his leadership.
Yes. Yep.
And ask him either about installing a plaque or making a quote unquote Hall of Fame bridge. I don't know if I haven't heard back from Mike, so. Mike's not here today, so.
Yeah, I think
so I
this
don't
is
know if there's any other updates.
Go ahead, Mike Tyler.
This is an opportunity, I think, that we really ought to take advantage of, because, we just lost Walt, and I think he was another person who was a very important element in promoting cycling and cycle safety. So I don't think we want to pass this up. I haven't been able to talk to Chaz, but it was Chaz Salkin and his idea, and we didn't have to work hard with Chaz. He said, sure, let's do this. And he took it on himself to take care of this. And, Larry Wunderland was, quite a guy who started a lot of different things. And I think it's something it's worth pursuing. So I don't want to let this drop.
Yeah, we'll keep it on the agenda under the old business, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
And hopefully Mike Crumrine will be on next time to give us an update on what he was checking at, because I think that was
I'll
the
see if I
most.
can get a hold of Chaz.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. 6:59, please, somebody make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I got one more thing. They have do they have the phone number and the email for the lady from the Silverside Road and Surrey Lane that spoke earlier? Do they have contact? Do you have a contact information for her?
John, she has it in chat. but if you
Okay.
don't get it out of chat, I will email it to you tomorrow.
I will be having whichever troop is responsible for that area, just contact her directly to follow up.
But if you go to chat right now, it's near the top.
Yep, I got it. Screenshot it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. That's your job, Scott.
All those, anybody opposed to adjourning? Thanks, everybody.